All right. Sup, fuckers?
How we doing?
How the hell are you guys?
Fan-fucking-tastic.
Fantastic.
Yeah, we're here with our good buddy Andrew Gordon.
Introduce yourself.
I'm Andrew. First time on the podcast here.
Cool, yeah. We're glad that you were willing to come on and talk with us. We're going to talk about some cool shit. Oh.
Professor. Sorry. Doctor?
Doctor.
Oh,
We're doctors.
Hold on.
Doctor.
Oh, shit.
Shit, yeah.
Doctor? That's how that works.
We confirmed, was it just the last episode? I mean, we've been talking about it for quite a while, but we confirmed with ChatGPT that we are, in fact, doctors.
It's true. Yeah.
So
We got ChatGPT to refer to us as doctors because we have PhDs in bullshit.
Fucking love it.
not, I mean, they're what is it called? Honorary doctorates, but hey.
Yeah.
You can print that
Doctor,
on the
doctor.
internet now, right?
Yeah.
Probably.
I could write it down on a piece of paper. It'll be just as true.
Fucking love it. Love it.
Doctor.
Doctor.
So yeah, we're gonna talk about 2A today.
2A, that's the Second Amendment.
The Second Amendment.
The second most important amendment.
As opposed
Because first
to,
is freedom of speech.
Yeah.
Shit, piss, fuck, cocksucker, motherfucker, tits, fart, dirty twat.
But you don't have freedom of speech without the Second Amendment.
Yeah.
Exactly.
You gotta defend that shit, right?
It's true. I just hold freedom of speech a little bit higher just because I use that one every day versus Second Amendment I don't use every day.
Yeah, I think that for me that's like looking into it and stuff, and I've always, I was raised around guns and guns were in the household all the time, and we went out shooting a lot and didn't really think about it as being like a controversial thing. I mean, maybe it's just because of the state that we live in. We live in Utah, and it's kind of a common thing here, but like, but you look at it and it's like the right of the American citizens to keep and bear arms is kind of what the basis that we can, the government says tries to enforce anything that we don't agree with. We have that right to defend ourselves. So it's like all
Not
these
just the
other,
right, but the ability.
yeah, all of the other rights kind of stand on the shoulders of the Second Amendment, because I mean the Second Amendment upholds to say yeah the fuck we can.
Yeah, it's the right to bear arms against a tyrannical government.
Right.
It's literally in the Second Amendment.
Right.
100%.
If you don't have F-16s and bombers and tanks, you can't stand up to the military. Remember old Joe Biden saying that one?
Yeah. Which is crazy. I mean, he was a crazy person. I think, well, most people in government seem like they have a bit of craziness.
Most popular president ever, 88 million votes.
How do you guys think the Second Amendment got so convoluted in the sense that there's even a debate about it? Is it in the wording? Did Madison word it wrong?
No, I think it was worded correctly to the point that it's left with enough space for interpretation to go forward into the future. Because obviously when that was written, we're still using, muskets and shit like that. They didn't, I'm positive they didn't write it with the intention of like, you shouldn't be able to own an M249, right? They didn't think that far ahead, but it is open enough that the right to bear arms applies to all arms, even what's in the future kind of thing. I think it got convoluted because of crime and the way that people have tried to legislate on top of that to try to counteract all the crime that was happening. Probably starting more into like the Prohibition era and then, going into the Great Depression where gun crime became kind of prevalent because people were starving and they would rob people for food and money and things like that. But going forward with more and more like small-time gang violence where people try to over-legislate firearms all the time, that's where it's convoluted. I don't think the wording in the original Constitution is convoluted or, too constricting. I think it's open enough for interpretation.
Yeah. So I'll read what it is. I wanted to read it exactly so I'm not like paraphrasing it or anything. Second Amendment, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of the free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. So I think that where a lot of people have a problem with that, or the argument comes in, is saying that, if you're not part of a militia, then you shouldn't have a gun. And it's like, well, no,
Yeah.
we the people are the militia.
Yeah.
Correct.
And so we do have the right to keep and bear arms, and it should not be infringed. It can't be.
No, I
Taken
agree
away.
with you. If you're standing against a tyrannical government, you are part of the militia.
Right.
I think there's some confusion with a lot of people on that part, and they think like that the National Guard is the militia and blah, blah, blah. I don't know if you guys are aware of this or not, but there were actually several revisions to the Second Amendment. So I'll share the first and original one with you. Just a second here.
Need your doctor
Take your time,
glasses.
doctor.
Got it. But I think that Madison, in the final revision, which was in 1791, this is a grammatical fucking nightmare, in my opinion. But the original draft, this was in 1789, it starts out, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. A well-armed, well-regulated militia being the best security to the country, but person religiously scrupulous of bearing arms shall be compelled to render military service in person. That was the original draft.
That was a fucking mouthful.
Yeah. But then they changed it 3 or 4 different times and finally came out with the one that we have today, which is a 1791. But if you look at the origins, though, like of the country, originally it was these United States, right?
Mm-hmm.
Not the United States, and there's some. How do I say it? There's some differences between these United States and the United States.
Oh yeah, for sure.
But each state had, and I'll give some examples here too. Each state had their own version of that Second Amendment that applied to the state. And 3 of the best ones, you had Vermont. Vermont's was drafted in 1777, and it says the people have the right to bear arms for the defense of themselves and the state. Massachusetts in 1780, the people have a right to keep and bear arms for the common defense. We also have Pennsylvania, and that one goes that the people have a right to bear arms for the defense of themselves and the state. So they're not even mentioning militias.
Mhm.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that, so, I mean, the Constitution was written and agreed upon, and then there was a fear that, the only rights people would have would be the rights that were in the Constitution, so they came up with the Bill of Rights. And then they kind of made a few different drafts of the Bill of Rights that we know today. But it was just like today, how bills get kind of, drawn up, and then everybody has to kind of agree on what the terms are of the bills. And so I think that's why it was changed, because people the legislature, that they didn't want to agree all on the same thing, so they had to redraft and rewrite things to be so everybody could agree on it,
Yeah.
So I think the way that they have it worded now is kind of a blanket statement to encompass, to me it encompasses just everybody, all the citizens of the United States as a militia. We should be able to fight for our own country. Like, if we're fighting for or against the government, we are the regulated militia.
It's true.
To me, that's what it means.
Well, I mean, you think about it, if we're invaded, let's say Red Dawn style right now, and we take up arms against an invader, we are a militia.
Yeah.
Through and through. We're not military, we're not inducted in any way, so we're just an unregulated militia.
Yeah.
So what's the difference between taking up arms against an invading army or taking up arms against, some just evil, shitty person on the street who's trying to harm you?
Mhm.
It's a terrorist act no matter what. So,
And you look at that time, we had Minutemen, and the Minutemen had their own firearms, their own stuff, and they congregated as that militia.
And I think that, at the time that it was written, that was pretty fresh,
Yeah.
that they had to call on the citizens in every, all these places. So to think forward and say, if this happens again, we need the people to be prepared. We want them to have their own shit and
Right.
be able to protect what we have, or,
Right. And the way that it is worded, which is the final revision of it, right? It's the people have the right to keep and bear arms, shall not be infringed, right?
Yeah.
Not the militia has
yeah.
the right to keep and bear arms.
right. And so, that
And
was,
there's a huge difference there.
that was, so there was a court case in like 2008
Mm-hmm.
that the courts officially, since they judged in favor of, saying that what that means is that the militia means the people, and so every citizen has the right to keep and bear arms. That's what they ruled in favor of that, and so that's what the law is now understood as, which I agree with.
I do too.
I really think that the stranglehold on 2A that the government has now, with so many bans on so many little things, it really does infringe upon that right. Where we have the right to keep and bear arms, but you can't have bump stocks, but you can't have high capacity magazines, but you can't have X, Y, or Z. And I feel like that's where we are being infringed, because it's almost like, a lot of kind of the left-wing propaganda wants us to stay within, okay, this was written when we had muskets. You can have a musket, but you can't have an AR-15 kind of thing. That's where the convolution comes into play with me. It's, where does the line of the right end and your right to over-legislate what I can and cannot have? Where's the line there?
What do you think the original intent was there? I mean, because there was another case in, I believe it was 1934. I might be botching this because I'm just pulling it out of my ass right now, but...
Can't be. You're a doctor. You took 7 years of courses.
That's right. Doctors don't do that. But I want to say it was like Al Capone's cohorts or whatever. They were transporting a sawed-off shotgun across state lines, and that went to Supreme Court, and they had decided, well, we can regulate this, that, and the other, but I don't think that was the intent of the founding fathers, right? I mean, the state-of-the-art weaponry during that time was a musket,
Yeah.
right?
Exactly, yeah.
The way I interpret that is you and I should be able to possess whatever the hell we want.
I 100% agree. If I want to buy a fucking tank, I should be able to
Yes.
buy a tank.
Yes.
Period.
Yeah. Or it's like somebody that is not obeying the laws breaks into your house with this semi-automatic or an automatic rifle, and you say, "Hold."
Right. Yeah, hold on. Give me 5 minutes
wait.
here.
Almost done.
My pan's not quite full.
Yeah. I mean, I think that you should be able to have the ability to defend yourself in the same capacity as somebody that might be attacking you. So, I mean,
Mhm.
if you have to be able to match firepower with the evil entities of the world or out of this world.
Yeah, I mean, if you need a sawed-off double barrel to kill a ghost, that's what you need.
Yeah.
You said out of this world, that's where I took it.
I want a laser gun. That's what I'm
Yeah, I
saying.
want it. I do too.
I want a lightsaber.
Yeah, there you go.
I actually do have a lightsaber. It doesn't work against ghosts. I tried it.
Did you?
Yeah. Doesn't work against Scott.
We have the video proof that no ghosts were harmed with the
No ghosts were
lightsaber.
Watch that episode. I haven't seen that episode.
Yeah, no, I do believe that any law-abiding citizen should be able to own whatever they want. If you want a fully automatic rifle, you should be able to buy one. And
Yeah.
you should not be taxed to death for it either. I mean, I know a lot of states allow tax stamps for fully automatic weapons, but why do I have to buy an extra tax stamp? It does pretty much the same thing as your basic AR that you could buy for $500 at Big Five. It just fires faster.
Yeah.
So why do I have to pay extra money for it? Or a suppressor. Like, it just makes it a little bit more quiet. Why am I paying for a tax stamp for an add-on? You don't have to pay a tax stamp for a red dot sight or a new stock or a sling. What's the difference?
Well, people watch too much freaking TV. and
That's the
I'm
problem.
Sorry, a suppressor doesn't work that way. You know.
Oh my God.
It's not like a fucking BB gun and
It's not like
you can snipe some dude from wherever and do it quietly. It doesn't.
Oh man, I love it when you watch TV and they're just like, and it's so quiet that
It's
the
cool,
guy
though.
the guy over there couldn't hear it.
Yeah.
Like, that's not how that works. It's still really loud. It's just you can tolerate a few shots without ear protection, and then it's gonna hurt.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's actually more sophisticated and probably better for everyone's hearing.
It's true. I'll be right back. You guys keep going.
So what do you think about the debate about like gun control?
How do you mean?
Just like wanting to regulate who has what, and by like, you know, registering your firearms and
Historically, that has never worked out very well at all in any place that it has ever happened. And I could give several examples. We could start with Nazi Germany. Any time that a group, be it government or otherwise, has taken away firearms from another group, it has always turned out disastrous.
yeah. I agree, and I think that it's almost a marker signal for like further government overreach.
Yeah.
And it seems like that's, you know, a starting place for where, you know, you start taking away, chipping away at like rights to get people to do. I mean, I do it with my kids, like, you know, to try to get their behavior to match what you want to, you know, the direction you want them to go. You want to try to make it seem like it's their own decision, right?
Mhm.
Somebody will make a decision more easily, or like feel like they were more in control if they think that they came up with the idea.
Right.
So it's like, I mean, you give them options, and then you just start narrowing those options, so you're kind of directing people's behaviors into a certain way that you want them to behave. So I see that, you know, it seems like in historical examples from countries that, you know, they're start chipping away at their rights, and then all of a sudden you end up with a Nazi Germany type situation.
Absolutely.
And I think that, like we said before, I mean, the Second Amendment seems like one of those foundations that upholds all the rest of our rights, and we shouldn't be willing to let them take those rights away from us.
Yeah.
And people need to wake up to that. Like,
You know, I mean, if we really look at it, what comes first, the right or the government? Like, I hate to say it, fuck these guys, dude.
yeah,
I mean, I'm gonna defend myself. You're gonna defend yourself.
yeah, for sure.
That's I guess you could go back to that wording, right? Inalienable.
Yeah, and that's where we talked about it beforehand about these occurrences of gun violence, that, you know, school shootings, mass shootings. Is that a gun control issue? Is that a gun issue? Or is that a social issue?
It's a moral issue.
Moral issue.
You know, when I was a kid, and maybe I'm dating myself here, but like you could pull into the parking lot at my high school, and there were trucks with gun racks and guns in the freaking gun racks because we were going shooting after school.
Yeah.
And the principal would walk by and not bat a freaking eye, and nobody was concerned with a mass school shooting because Joe's rifle was in the back of his truck, plain as day. You could see it, you know, right through the back windshield, and nobody was concerned about it at all, because if Joe got in an altercation that day, he's going to duke it out with Bob. He's not going to shoot Bob. And probably at the end of the day, they're going to be best friends.
Yeah.
Right? But it's a different time. I think it's a moral issue, not a tool issue. A firearm is a tool, not a, you know.
Scapegoat.
Yeah.
Well, I think the problem with that isn't so much of firearms themselves. It's when a school shooting happens, or a mass shooting or something like that happens, and people want to have an emotional reaction to firearms, and their first idea is, you know, we need to have bans on firearms. We need to take them away. We need to get rid of them, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, no, you're taking them away from law-abiding citizens accomplishes fucking nothing.
Nothing.
You need to figure out where these illegal firearms are coming from and go to those sources. So where are these unregistered, unmarked firearms coming from? Are they being sold to gang members from Mexico or things like that? Go after those guys instead of trying to take them away from everybody else who's not doing anything wrong with theirs. That's where the real problem is. Was
it Operation Fast and Furious?
Oh God, family.
Where we being our government, transporting firearms across the border and spreading them to cartels. I believe that was Operation Fast and Furious.
Well, the government would never do that.
Yeah.
Of course
That's
not.
crazy.
2000, what was that, 12, I think?
What?
I am sure that's not the only time that was being done.
No.
Yeah,
no.
as we've covered a few times on this channel, that the government isn't always above board on a lot of things. So
I'll say.
There's a TV show called Trafficked. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
Mm-hmm.
And this
It
lady,
plays right after Swamp Cop.
it's on 80.
I've never seen Swamp Cops either.
But she like investigates like drug trafficking, just anything that people trafficking drugs and firearms. But it's very interesting, tracking both coming from the U.S. to Mexico and from Mexico to the U.S. and some of them are the same guns. They're just being trafficked all over the place. But it's like there seems to be that there is government interaction and like involvement in a lot of these cases, and it's sickening that our government is willing to do these things for the betterment of to give them something to do. I don't know, job security maybe.
You gotta appease your constituents, I guess.
Yeah.
For the record, I'm not anti-government.
I don't think anybody really is anti-government.
I'm anti-corrupt government.
Yes.
That's it.
Yeah.
I'm also anti-big government.
I am too.
Well, yeah, the bigger an organization like that gets, the more room there is for corruption. I mean,
100%. I mean,
There are a lot of good people serving in our government with
For sure.
good intentions and our best interest at heart. There's also the
shady
reverse of
fucking
that.
dick faces.
dick face. I'm so anti-corrupt government, I genuinely think we should hang people on the White House lawn for treason.
Treason.
I do too.
Yeah.
I do too.
Like old school hanging.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That'll fucking... I think the way to solve that problem is to make the punishment for the crime so severe nobody would ever dare do it again.
I could be wrong, but I believe that is still the punishment for treason. It's just we don't do it.
Yeah.
Fucking pussies.
Yeah.
Go back to an eye for an eye. I mean, that's what they say, like in like some Middle Eastern countries where like you can leave your wallet sitting there and then leave and then come back and it'll still be sitting there out in public because
If someone takes it, they get their hand chopped off.
right.
Yeah.
And so it's like, is it worth going through that? No, it's not. I mean, and they'll follow through with it. So it's like,
That's
Here.
what it should be.
yeah,
Yeah.
I agree.
And I genuinely think that I hate to say this, I do think the punishment for gun-related violence should be higher because of what you are doing to the Second Amendment, what you're doing to the Constitution, and all the other law-abiding citizens who own and operate firearms safely and legally. Like, so, let's say a gangbanger does a drive-by, doesn't kill anybody, he just damages property. Instead of getting 5 years, he should get 20. Just because it's gun-related violence.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I understand the social, like, people who are raised in that environment see that as a normal thing, and so doing those things doesn't seem like such a big deal. And, they see people that they're associated with doing, drive-bys or, being a gang member and using firearms on a daily basis. Like, you look at videos from, like, Chicago and, some places in Florida.
Chirac.
Yeah, and it's a normal thing for people to be walking around shooting at people because they're, rival gangs. That's how they were raised. That's what the norm for them. So it really is, I mean, to me, it's a blatant social issue. Like, why is this happening and why is it being continued and also kind of glamorized in pop culture and movies and like music and stuff like that, being, seen as some like cool person because you're doing these things. That doesn't make any sense to me.
It doesn't. And glamorizing firearm kind of culture within media is a different animal all to itself because, you could have some young, impressionable kid, especially in an impoverished neighborhood, where they'll watch, like a rapper who's flashing a gun in front of the camera in a music video, and they think, oh, that's so cool, I want to do that. And there's an escalation factor versus, us, we kind of grew up with like the tough guys of the 80s, Schwarzenegger, Stallone, Bruce Willis, all these guys, running on screen and shooting guns and things like that. We think the same thing, but our path becomes totally different. And it is a culture problem where, we're still raised to kind of believe like, hey, you can't actually do that in real life, versus these guys, they actually are being raised by people who do stuff like that in real life.
Yeah.
So the culture becomes very different, where we kind of have an understanding and a respect versus they think of it as a toy kind of thing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's, talking about in that same vein is like, we grew up watching these action stars, and so in my mind, if I'm going to get into a fight, I'm going to fucking do some karate on this dude. Because when I think about it in reality, I'll try to do a roundhouse kick and I'll kick him like right in the thigh, because that's where my stretchability.
It's not quite Van Damme's.
It's not. It doesn't match up to what I see in my mind.
No, I'm going full John Wick. I'm just going to lock up with him and get him to the ground. That's what I'm going to do. Because my kick ratio is probably that high too. Like, your shin is going to hurt really bad.
When I think about it in my mind, the first thought is if somebody attacks me, I'm not going to try to shoot him.
No.
Maybe it's just the culture that we were raised in. That's what
Well, even somebody like myself, where, I conceal carry all the time, my first thought isn't, oh, there might be an altercation, let me get my gun. It's kind of like, let me observe and see what's going to happen, and then if somebody's actual life is in jeopardy, that's the final straw. That's when, I'll draw. But if it's like not that big of a deal, you can't just go to that power move of pulling your gun. It's stupid.
Yeah.
It has to do with like almost mentally respecting yourself enough that you can handle a situation instead of having to just pull your gun on somebody. Granted, I've had to brandish a little bit at a couple of people over the years, but it's like crazy people who downtown want to fuck with you. So you're just kind of like, hey, I am armed, leave me alone. And then they go away.
Yeah. I kind of wonder if it was, we hear about, we see like in the Wild West when people were walking around carrying guns all the time, right? Was it as like shootouts and stuff like that as prevalent as it seems like they were in those shows, or was it more of like you're walking around and you're seeing everybody has a gun, so you're less likely to fuck with somebody, or you just
that is an actual fact? Yes, I did look into that a long time ago, because I wondered, like, in the Wild West, was it like that, in the movies where every saloon had a shootout every day, and crime was actually not that high, but there was also a lot of places had justifiable rules with shootings. If you were going to go have a showdown, like, it was justified as long as you both agreed.
Yeah.
And this wasn't everywhere. It just a lot of places were that way. But that same mentality stands of, yeah, I have a gun and I could go to it. That guy has a gun and he's got a gun and he's got a gun. Like, if I pull on him, his three buddies are going to pull on me. So maybe let's just have a drink and shut up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kind of changes shit a little bit.
It does.
Yeah.
There is a level playing field, and I think when you look at a place like Chicago versus a place like Salt Lake, where we have a much more prevalent firearm culture where a lot more people carry, criminals are a little bit less likely to commit crimes. And I know people go, oh, criminals don't think that far ahead. Not everybody's stupid. Some of them are going to go, I bet a lot of dudes are carrying in this Walmart. I'm not going to try anything.
Yeah.
Versus Chicago, where it's like a lot of people are.
They know nobody's carrying.
Yeah, they know none of
their buddies.
None of the legal citizens are carrying,
Yeah.
but the bad guys, they're carrying. So
strangely, isn't Chicago like the highest?
One of the fucking worst.
Yeah.
It's Baghdad over there. As much as people from Chicago want to defend it, because I've seen it on Reddit many, many times. oh, gun violence isn't that bad. Like, it's literally the worst.
Yeah. Yeah, I've been to Chicago, and it's there's definitely some places that I wouldn't like want to. They're very intimidating. But then, you know, just like anywhere else, there's a lot of places there that are pretty cool to go check out.
Well, sure.
And, you know, same can be said for on a very lesser scale. I mean, there's definitely places in Salt Lake that you wouldn't want to walk around, you know, all willy-nilly, but...
Rose Park.
I grew up in Rose Park.
I think it's a little more gentrified now.
Yeah. But yeah, everywhere has those issues.
Sorry. It's definitely Ogden.
There are some places in Ogden that are pretty sketch, dude.
There are.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think you're better off counting the places in Ogden that aren't sketch and just compare.
I think that's a fair statement.
So, what is your take on concealed carry versus open carry? Do you personally conceal carry?
I do.
Okay.
I do. I don't carry all the time. I probably should carry more than I do. But, yeah, I mean, honestly, I don't think that is really even something that should be you have to have a concealed carry permit, and just my take on it. Second Amendment should be my concealed carry permit.
I agree with you. I still love the line "shall not be infringed upon."
Uh-huh.
That's the way I see it. I do have a permit, but it just like covers me legally in a way.
Right.
I agree. And for the most part, people, I mean, we're talking about it in a way that it's like, you shouldn't fuck with somebody because everybody has the right to be armed, and you don't know if they are or not.
Yeah.
You know, but in reality, the thing is, you shouldn't fuck with people, just leave people alone. It shouldn't even be like a gun issue, really.
No.
Yeah.
It's like, dude, why the fuck are you even trying to fuck with people in the first place?
Yeah, it's as simple as the
Focus on your own shit. And
Wiccan principle, and it harm none, do what you will.
yeah,
Like, I don't care if you're being belligerent, but don't come over and be belligerent to me,
yeah.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
You have the right to be as belligerent as you want. Just over there.
In your own fucking house.
Don't include me.
No. And there's consequences to that, right? Like,
Yeah.
you say what you want, but you might get a tooth knocked out, right?
Yeah.
But you didn't get shot.
Fair enough.
You learned a lesson,
Uh-huh.
you know.
And I think that's another big thing is like, for me personally, I was, like I said, I was raised mostly in this state and grew up around guns and firearms and don't have an issue seeing them. I, like you, in my high school, people had gun racks in their trucks, and that was a normal thing.
Yeah.
And we would go out shooting all the time after school. We'd go out for lunch and then just not come back to school because we'd go out four-wheeling and shooting in the middle of the day.
Same.
That's what's up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I just got a phone call from how come you skipped school? Oh, we went out shooting. Oh, okay.
Yeah. Your dad's like,
Yeah.
that's my boy.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
That's what's up.
So, I mean, I'm trying to do the same thing with my kids. Like, I started them at an early age, teaching them how to use firearms and safely. And,
I've done the same.
you know, in my house, I try to keep all of our firearms, you know, safely stored, just so nobody can do something stupid with them. Or it's mostly like people can't come in and steal my shit, but
I don't do this often, but I do so I have 2 gun rooms, and one of them one of them is more of a maintenance type gun room, and oftentimes I will leave that open. I trust the kids enough that like I don't do this, but I would be completely comfortable leaving any of my guns on the kitchen table
Mm-hmm.
and going to the store. What I would worry about if I did that would be friends of theirs. But
Yeah.
as far as my kids are concerned, I have zero
I'm 100% the same
zero
way.
issue with trusting that they would do the right thing with firearm, because they have been around them enough to understand it and safely
Yeah, and that's where.
use them or not.
So I have two boys, and they both know how to handle it. You know, they both know how to check and make sure it's loaded or empty, and they both know that there are rules to firearm safety and things like that. Then I have an 8-year-old daughter, and she just knows until it's time that Dad's going to show me, don't fucking touch it. Because I'll take mine out, you know, and I unchamber it, and I put the magazine back in, but there's nothing in the chamber, and I put it back in my holster and put it on my nightstand, and she never touches it ever. So I'm the same way, and I think that's the problem with firearms these days. Well, one of the big problems is education,
Yeah.
where once that was taken kind of out of schools, and I don't even want to say put in the hands of parents, because a lot of parents didn't teach it, you know, because they just kind of intrinsically knew gun safety. But once that was kind of taken out of schools and put into the hands of media, it became an issue, because kids, you know, they see guns on TV and in movies and stuff, and they think, yeah, I can twirl a gun like this. Well, you really shouldn't, you know,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So I really think one of the biggest steps we could take as a society in a positive step for firearms is to put gun safety back into schools, especially in elementary.
Absolutely.
Like, what do you do if you're walking home and you see a gun laying on the ground? What are you going to do? Well, a lot of kids are going to go, hey, look, I got a fucking gun. How cool is this?
Yeah.
But other kids are going to be like, no, I'm going to call somebody, and they're going to call the cops or whatever, and they'll come and get it. Or, you know, if your parent happens to leave a firearm out, you're going to at least know to check and see if it's empty or how to empty it or whatever. Like, learning these small fundamentals would change a lot of things drastically.
The more that we take that away and make it this scary, untouchable thing, right? That
Yeah.
it's locked in the safe, and
It's like a monster that you got in a cage, you know?
the higher we raise that curiosity for them. And if you were in a situation where, you know, they did get access to it, that curiosity is going to be a lot higher. The potential for them to have an accident with it is going to be a lot higher, because they're going to be 10 times more curious about what is this magical, mystical unicorn that I am not supposed to be within a football field away from.
Yeah.
You know, versus this is what it is, this is what it does,
Yeah.
this
Well,
is how we use it safely, we don't do this, you know, and then it's like, oh, okay, it's a,
Demystifying it.
yeah,
Well, it's the
a
same
tool.
concept as like alcohol in the United States versus somewhere like Germany, where alcohol laws are very
Lax.
kind of lax, and you know, it's not uncommon for kids age of like 14, 15 to have a glass of wine at dinner time with their parents, you know. And so like they're exposed to alcohol more than, you know, this restrictive culture of the United States, as in, you know, it's illegal, you can't touch it until such and such. And so there's a higher rate of, you know, college age kids that are having incidences with, you know, overconsumption of alcohol because they don't understand it, and they're more curious to go after that. And drugs also,
Yeah.
as opposed to like Europe, where they're exposed to that and around that, and it's kind of part of the culture, and so they're not so mystified by it and drawn to it
Yeah.
as, you know, we are in the United
Right.
States.
It's a forbidden fruit thing.
Right.
Absolutely.
Like, oh, I've been told I can't have this my whole life, and now I have a chance to have it without anybody knowing or anybody giving it to me. Like, you're going to overconsume.
Yeah.
And the same applies to, yes, alcohol, guns, drugs, sex, anything, you know, where it is treated like it is a beast in a cage and you shouldn't get anywhere near it because it'll kill you or whatever, instead of taking the piss out of it and say, oh, this is what it is, very simply. Oh, okay, cool, you know. But even since you brought it up, the kind of age of drinking and the age of being able to own, you know, a handgun is 21 is so silly to me, because it's like, you can go sign up for the military and you can go fight and die for your country, but you can't have a beer and you can't own a pistol. It's so weird to me. Or even here in the state of Utah, you can't even buy cigarettes till you're 21.
Yeah.
So
Is it
that
21 now?
it is
Yeah.
21. Yeah, it's so weird to have that like 3-year gap.
Yeah.
I don't understand it.
You're legally an adult, but you are still stupid until you're 21.
Yeah,
You
you're
can't actually do real shit.
you're legally old enough that you have to sign up for the draft, but you can't have a whole lot of fun.
Yeah.
Yeah, talking about like gun kind of education. So when I was in high school, I was in JROTC, and like that was the only place that I got any kind of gun control type of or gun safety inside of school, kind of teaching from. And it was like we went and shot air rifles, like BB guns, but high power air rifles. But it was, you know, we went through the course and it taught you how to handle a firearm safely and stuff like that. And that was in school, like a school class in high school. But I went through hunter safety when I was like 15 or something like that. And same thing, like, you know, you go through and you have to study and then take a test of how to handle a firearm safely and hunting safely and stuff like that, which is, I mean, it's not hard. It's not a hard course to pass, but it kind of takes you through the steps of making sure that you know how to handle a firearm safely. And even just that, I think, would be super beneficial for all of the kids.
For sure. I mean,
It don't only have to be, you know, half of a semester, a quarter of information.
yeah. Well, even when I got my concealed carry permit, you have to sit through like a 4-hour course, right? And at first I was very hesitant to do it because it's like, what am I going to learn? You know, being very arrogant. But when I sat down and I'm paying attention there, I did learn a lot of things, you know, of kind of legalities and when it's okay versus when it's not okay. And there was quite a few things that I think were strong takeaways from that one 4-hour course that a lot more people need to understand. You know, kind of like if somebody is attacking you, you can't just shoot them in the head. That's just murder, right?
Yeah.
So you shoot them twice in the chest. And if they keep coming, then you can shoot them in the head, kind of thing. It's more like to teach you how to protect yourself against poor legislation in a way. And some of it is to teach you a little bit of morality with firearms too, right? So I think things like that, or, you know, hunter safety, the concealed carry, or just gun safety classes in general would all be beneficial for all of youth to come up, you know, as you're learning and growing, and you dispel a lot of what you've seen on TV by understanding realities of firearms, consequence of firearms. And there's a lot of consequences.
Yes.
Yeah.
As there should be in violent crimes scenarios, there should be.
100%.
But I mean, even just taking away guns doesn't really solve the moral and social issues that are causing these things to happen. Like, you take, for instance, the UK, where they, you know, you can't really own a firearm as a citizen. I mean, you can, but you have to, it's pretty
There's a
highly
whole weird
regulated,
fucking
yeah.
process with it over there.
But attacks with like bladed weapons, knives and stuff is fucking insane.
Astronomical.
People get stabbed all the time there because they don't have a gun, or I don't know. Same situation as here. I mean, definitely you can do a lot more damage with a firearm, but it doesn't change the social issue where, you know, the problem isn't the weapon, it's the people who are using these tools. Like,
No, it's definitely every problem, every big social problem like that, it needs to be a multi-pronged solution. You know, you think about immigration, where right now America's cracking down really hard on immigration and deporting people. It's like, okay, but what are we doing for the people who want to come here legally? Because that system is fucking broken. So we have to adapt the system to let people come in legally and safely, deport the bad ones, and then still have some kind of system for like people who have lived here for fucking 30 or 40 years. You're just going to send them back to a country they don't know, kind of thing. There's so many different avenues of attack to solve that problem. And it's the same thing with a lot of these impoverished neighborhoods, you know, in LA or Chicago or Miami or wherever, where gun violence is very prevalent. You can't just say, okay, take away all the guns and it's going to solve it. You have to solve all the other issues that go with it. You have to be able to give people in these like ghettos actual opportunities to thrive in life and show them that they don't have to do these things, or, you know, actually make the area better. You know what I'm saying? So there's so many different solutions that go into that don't just involve take the guns away.
yeah.
We have a broken system, and in my opinion, it's by design. That's another podcast for another day.
100%.
But, you know, I mean, that is, like, if I wanted, if the guns were gone and I wanted to hurt somebody, I could do just as much damage in my truck as I could with any firearm.
Yeah.
And that's one example of hundreds of thousands of choices we could make. The problem is a moral, societal issue.
It is. I mean, think about years ago when that guy ran through that, was it a parade or a marathon with a Mustang and killed like 20 people?
Yeah.
If people want to kill other people, they will find a way to do it.
Absolutely.
100%. But we just vilify the gun because it's the easiest way. But in reality, if I went and got into my Dodge truck and ran through a marathon, I could probably kill way more people with that than I could with one handgun, you know?
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think that the conversation of gun control is just kind of, they're using it as a, we were talking about this when you stepped out for a second, it was just, you know, a political tactic to have one, you know, whoever's in charge of this thing, that they want to have these bills passed. It's just a tool that they're trying to use to get their agenda pushed forward.
Yeah. And that's the sad thing with a lot of politicians, is they'll kind of pander to whoever's kind of giving them campaign funds. So if it's an anti-gun syndicate of some kind, they'll push for that anti-gun thing whether they believe it or not.
Yeah. You know, something like a mass shooting happens, they go straight to the gun and say it's the gun's fault. And it's like, well, let's talk about it. Like, what is this person's history? What was going on? Why was there nothing done when all these signs were showing that something is happening with this person?
Yeah.
They don't want to talk about it. They just want to talk about the gun.
The gun itself.
Right. It's been a fairly recent shift, and fairly recent, I'm saying within the last 30 years, right? What do you think is causing that shift? I mean, what do you think that agenda is? Because I'm 100% sold that there is an agenda to take those firearms from us and everyone else, and there's got to be a reason behind it.
I'm curious to hear what you think first.
Well, definitely more government encroachment, but I don't know why.
Yeah, I think that it's 100%. You know, you take away the guns, then you can start to chip away at all the other rights, because people aren't going to have the means to defend themselves in any way, meaningful way, if they don't have this firm wall of, you know, what is there, 300 million people in America, and probably at least 50% of those people have firearms in their homes.
Yeah.
So you have this.
It's a lot.
This militia of 150 million people that are going to go up against anybody that steps in and says they want to take away your right to say fuck you to anybody you want to.
Yeah. Well, and there's an aspect of that of, let's say the government decided, you know, let's actually go back to 2020, where there's all these talks of the government using the police force and the National Guard to go door to door and enforce a vaccine. I know it was conspiracy, whatever, but it's still an ideology that's out in the ether. How many of those police force members or military are going to want to go door to door knowing there's a fucking gun behind every door? You know, a lot of them are going to be like...
So we did that with Katrina.
That was an extremely interesting time.
Wasn't
during
it,
Katrina. I don't think it was outside of the realm of things that had been planned or thought about beforehand. I just think that Katrina kind of proved, even in a state of crisis, people are still willing to defend their shit.
Mm-hmm. I did find it interesting that our own military was sent into those areas to disarm law-abiding citizens trying to protect their shit from looters.
Mm-hmm. So with that said, do you believe that Chris Kyle was on the roof of the Superdome shooting looters?
No.
Me neither.
I never heard that.
It's in his book.
Either.
Oh,
Yeah, he claimed that he was sent in during Hurricane Katrina and set up on the roof of the Superdome to shoot looters.
really?
Yeah. Another one of his outlandish claims.
Yeah, there was a lot of weird shit that was going on in Katrina. I was merely focused on, I thought that everybody was going to start turning into zombies and eating people for some reason.
I thought that was going to happen with
COVID.
Which it
I think we were all...
in a sense, it kind of did.
Did you see the minks story?
The mink story? No.
So, during COVID, was it Denmark or some country? I want to say it was Denmark, but I could be totally wrong on that. So they have a huge population of minks that they breed for making fur coats and stuff like that.
Okay.
And there was a COVID variant. I never really looked into this to see if it was true or not, but there was a COVID variant supposedly that was like the mink would get COVID, die from it, and then a short while later come back to life and be a rabid animal, pretty much.
Pet cemetery.
And so
minks.
to control the spread of this virus, they culled like it was like 10 million minks that they had.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
They like killed them all and burned all the bodies.
That's interesting shit.
So I was like, this is it, dude.
Finally.
We're not that lucky, man.
Well, I mean, people were definitely zombies during COVID, but it's just the wrong kind.
Yeah.
It was masks and fucking toilet paper zombies.
That was a very interesting and still is a very interesting time, man. And I think you could kind of relate that to this little thing we're talking about, right? I mean, you had the whole world on board with some, I'm just gonna say it was just some fucking bullshit.
Yeah.
Yep.
And I'm not saying that, I'm not trying to downplay the fact that people died from COVID, but 100% we manufactured that virus. 100% we let it out intentionally, And 100%, we closed the entire fucking world down during that time. I mean, is that a one world government push? Is it a one world government experiment? Is that, I mean, if you look at America, Second Amendment, we really kind of are the last line. Yeah, there's other countries that have firearms that can own and possess firearms, but they're also very restricted, and those aren't rights for those people. Those are something that can be taken away at a whim.
Yep.
So we are kind of the last line there. Is that the shift? Is that the push?
I definitely think that plays a huge factor in a lot of it, because as much as the rest of the world hates to admit it, America is kind of like still the beacon of freedom, where we still have that one freedom that most countries don't have. And even if they have it, they could lose it right now. They could lose it tomorrow, kind of thing. So if you were to take essentially the biggest, baddest bully on the block and take away his one ability, who's to say, you know, everybody else can't lose it? You know, who's to say that whoever's in power can't take absolute power? And America really kind of is, in a way, the front line of defense for people's rights, you know. Think about it in this context. In the UK, there were people who were posting on social media during COVID against COVID and against vaccines and things like that. What happened to a lot of those people? They went to fucking jail.
Yeah.
Because they don't actually have free speech. We can say that shit, but the companies can censor us, but it doesn't mean we can't still say it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's literally no consequence for you in America in 2020 being like, COVID is bullshit.
Man, I hope I didn't just totally jack up your podcast saying that.
No, I think we've talked about it before.
Yeah, we've definitely tiptoed over quite a bit.
I mean, we're banned on YouTube because we had a podcast about 9/11.
Are you serious?
Yeah.
Well, they took down that episode.
We're not banned on YouTube entirely.
And then TikTok has cut us off a few times for hate speech.
Yeah. But it was like, one of the examples he was talking about was a clip that I was talking about. What were we talking about?
Having a dream about your spouse cheating.
Dreams. And I was like, yeah, it's like when you have a dream about your spouse who cheated on you, and like you wake up and then she tries to give you a kiss and you're like, you know, fuck that bitch. I don't want to kiss her. Get your dirty mouth away from me. But it was like, I was talking about like...
I remember seeing that, dude.
In your own head, saying to your imaginary wife, fuck you, I don't want to kiss you because you cheated on me in my dream. Yeah. So that got banned as hate speech somehow.
Wow.
But no, I think that, I think in my mind it seems like COVID was kind of a beta test for the limits of what the boundaries, how they can push those boundaries. And it seems like to me that it rolled out so well and so fast that they didn't have a next step. They just wanted to test it, and then they got some results and were like, oh shit, now what do we do?
Yeah.
And then so it was kind of like they were making shit up on the fly.
It was shocking to me how fucking pussified we have become. I mean, people just bent over and took it up the ass, man. Yeah. Generational businesses shut down forever.
Yep.
I mean,
it was a really interesting way to turn neighbor against neighbor and family member against family member, because you had people that were incredibly pro-COVID, like, wear your mask, stay 6 feet away, don't come over, and then everybody else is like, this is stupid. It's not that big of a deal. And hey, it turns out those people were right. It really wasn't that big of a deal. And I think there's a whole episode to cover in that.
And the whole forced me to take a shot. Dude, I was ready to lose my job.
Same.
Me too.
I was ready to walk out of there.
Yep.
I didn't do freaking shot, not gonna do the shot, but when they're like pushing this, you absolutely have to get this vaccine. And it's an experimental vaccine, and oh, by the way, we're gonna change the definition of a vaccine, literally, before we give you this fucking thing.
Isn't it weird?
I'm going, there's no way in hell you're putting that in my body.
Yeah.
It's so weird. The whole idea of the vaccine, I know we're getting a little off topic, but I had to. I think about it this way. When I was a kid, I got a polio vaccine. I have 0% chance of ever getting polio.
Right.
So if I get a COVID vaccine, but I could still get COVID,
It's not a
it's not a
vaccine.
fucking vaccine. That's not how that works.
But it is now, because they changed the definition in 2020.
Well, 2020 was a weird year for changing definitions, and
Indeed it was.
I could go playing women's sports at that time. Anyway,
2020 was a good year for me. I went fucking traveled to a bunch of like national parks that nobody was there because everybody was at home with COVID and shit.
Yeah.
Went to Glacier, Yellowstone, fucking Moab, all these places just because nobody else was there.
How'd you like Glacier?
Oh, it was
Freaking
beautiful.
amazing,
It was
isn't it?
beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then we went through Yellowstone, and it was like, you know, I've been there several times, and there's usually fucking traffic everywhere you go through Yellowstone.
Yeah.
It was probably a quarter of the people that are normally there. It was beautiful.
That's
It
awesome.
was beautiful. I took advantage.
I didn't.
I didn't either.
I just wasted
was
my
in a
fucking
weird
time.
Position at that time.
Same.
So I had a business, which I still have. So it was either shut that down and take the unemployment, or not take the unemployment, keep that going, and try and figure it out, which I did, and it worked out. But man, that was some asshole puckering time for me.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was something I wanted to curve around to. But one final note from me on COVID was that actually reaffirmed the firearms community in America at that time, because during COVID, when everything was locked down and shut down, there were gun stores and supplies places and all that. They were selling out everything.
Mm-hmm.
Like
Yeah.
you couldn't get fucking anything.
Yeah. Dude, I would get a case of, say, buffer tubes in, and literally it would be gone in a day. I mean, it was just as fast as I could get shit in.
Yeah.
And then there were parts that I couldn't even get in. Like I had got in prior, and I had, you know, kind of a stockpile of stripped uppers.
Mm-hmm.
Holy shit, man. I sold out of that. And then it was about a year and a half wait just to get another batch of uppers in.
Oh yeah, it was a tough time for
insane.
everything firearm related. Like, obviously, ammo always goes up in price during a crisis, every single time, or every time a Democrat gets elected as a president. Like, those two times coincide, and that's not even like a conspiracy thing. It's true. When Obama got elected 2 times in a row, ammo prices shot up both times, and they never went back down.
Right.
So, yeah, I mean, that really proved that kind of part of that was there was no new supply into dealers or manufacturers, but the other part was like people get scared and they want to buy
shit out of
everything firearm related. So,
Especially when we had the riots down here. Holy crap.
oh my
man.
God, that was bananas. You had your liberal friends at work being like, hey, do you have an extra gun I could borrow?
Yeah.
No. Sorry.
What does that mean?
You can borrow? Like, do you have any training?
Yeah.
So actually, I really did want to kind of come around to like your business and kind of what you do with that. What really inspired you to start a firearms-based business?
So
Because it's not a walk in the park.
it's not. In fact, it's incredibly difficult. Because there is so much encroachment on it, not only with the government, right, but social media is terrible. Like, I've had 2 different businesses in the last 20 years. The first one that I had, I did outdoor sporting type goods, emergency preparedness type stuff, right? And I could advertise any of that stuff pretty much anywhere. When it comes to firearms type stuff, I mean, I can't even run a freaking Facebook ad for it. So it's extremely difficult to build that up, right? And yeah, it's been a struggle. You have banks that won't work with you in the sense of even processing transactions, right? There's only certain banks that will work with you. You can't advertise it really anywhere except in and of your own social, which half of that gets shut down. Like, but where did that come from for me? I have been shooting literally my whole life. I think I got my first BB gun when I was 6, and my dad.
Well, it's good to see you didn't put your eye out with that thing.
No, I didn't, but you know, my dad started teaching me about firearms at a very young age. My first job out of high school was, well, I can't really say that because my dad had a construction company and I worked with him for several years through school and then even outside of that. But my first real job was as a gunsmith. I worked for a company here in Salt Lake called Arms Technology Incorporated at the time. And we had 2 contracts with Browning. We had the Buckmark 22 pistol, which is still around, and then we also had the 9mm BDM, which was a really cool pistol back in the day. You could go from single action, double action with it. Really, really cool pistol. So, you know, I did that right out of high school. In fact, was working with that company when the Brady Bill went through. I don't know if you guys remember the Brady Bill, which is no longer prevalent now, but it was like, I want to say August-ish of 1993 is where it got introduced, and then it got actually implemented into law in 1996. And so what it did, essentially, you could not, and this was throughout the nation, right? You could not buy a firearm with a magazine with a capacity of more than 10 rounds. So all of our pistols, like the BDM during that time, had a 15-round stack magazine, right? And so we had to take all of the production from that time forward and put blocks in the magazine, permanent blocks, so that you couldn't go past 10 rounds. And so a lot of the firearms that we had prior to that got taken out and whatnot. And then I don't remember exactly what year it was where that got overturned, but thank God it did.
Right.
And here we are today. But yeah, I mean, firearms have been a huge part of my life, all of my life, and yeah, always will be.
I think that's the way it should be.
Yeah, for sure.
So, within your business, which part of, I should more specifically say, what exactly do you do with firearms? Is it complete manufacture or modification?
No, I do parts, which honestly I'm leaning towards getting out of. My main gig over the last couple of years has been long-range optics and optics in general, right? Because my passion for firearms is in long-range shooting. That's just where I find my happy place, you know. A mile plus is where I find my happy place because it's hard. And so that kind of led me down the optics path. I mean, for a long time I was doing, you know, uppers and stuff like that, more AR related stuff, which I got into precision ARs when I was in the military. My favorite rifle was the SR-25, which is a semi-automatic.
Essentially an AR-10.
Yeah, essentially an AR-10. And so I kind of took that same idea with even some smaller calibers, and I've always been about training over cartridge, right? So that kind of led me down a path of using smaller shit to still get out to longer ranges, which 308, which is SR-25, right? It's a good cartridge, but it's not the best cartridge for long range.
Yeah.
But I found that if you can do the math right with it, you can make it do some shit that is pretty mind-blowing, right?
Sure.
And so,
Probably better out of a bolt action than a semi-auto, though. Gas conservation.
well, yeah, but I'm gonna caveat this here, like it's not 1990 anymore, and we have found that we can make some ridiculously accurate direct gas impingement rifles. Like I've got several half-minute direct gas impingement rifles, like AR platform rifles, which is pretty damn good. And then when you get into the reloading side of stuff, you know, you can really fine-tune a cartridge to that rifle.
For sure.
And take it down even more. But as far as my business goes, like I'm not really caring much more about, like, I still sell stuff. I still sell a massive amount of stuff online, and I probably will for a while, but I'm just about helping people, man, you know, and so I'm focusing more on YouTube and stuff like that, and just trying to help people accomplish their goals with that rather than selling shit. 'Cause I like selling shit, but that's not what drives me. What drives me is the actual end result, right? And I feel like I can have more of an impact helping people get that end result rather than just sell them a part that they don't really know how to use, or an optic that they don't really know how to use.
Yeah.
So in talking about that, you've actually created a book. Right?
I did, and so I've got two other books that I'm also working on right now. But the first one I did, and it's not not something that is new to the gun world, right? It's a DOPE book. DOPE stands for Data on Previous Engagements. But what I found is there wasn't really a DOPE book that had all of the data that I personally record. And so I made one so that other people could see maybe some other shit that they should be recording that would help them in their long range game, because it really is math, man. And the more when you use a dope book, basically what it does is it paints a picture of what your rifle is going to do over a period of time in different conditions. And as you know, those conditions like temperature plays into a distance, humidity, wind, all of those factors, even your lighting condition. And then as you get out further, now we're looking at Coriolis effect and shit like that. And so there's a lot of data that when you're out shooting, if you're not capturing that data, you're kind of starting from square one every time you take your system out and try and engage your target, right? And the farther you go out, the more precise those calculations have to be. But if you have a baseline over several different sessions, you have a really good idea of how it's going to perform under what conditions, at what altitude, at what muzzle velocity, with what bullet, you know.
Yeah.
And so so I record a lot more data than most of the dope books that have previously been out. And so I was like, shit, man, if I'm recording this is something that could help other people. And so that's why I made the book.
Yeah. So you're saying that people shoot for recreation?
And they do.
That's what they have guns for?
I thought they were only for school shootings. Fuck.
It's an amazing concept, yeah.
Oh yeah, that's really cool. And most people, you know, I'm nowhere near any kind of, you know, doing any of that, but I understand what you're talking about. And it's like most people that even go out casually shooting don't really take all of those factors into effect, even just on a, you know, really trying to shoot something even for like novice, I would say, people like myself, and trying to hit something that's 300 or 400 yards away even. It's like you like get down, you aim at it, you know, it's this far away, I'm gonna have a drop of my, you know, the bullet's gonna drop a little bit, and so like I take a shot, even just hitting the target, then I stand up, you know, spit into the wind, you know. I don't know if you guys saw that, but I actually hit it.
Yeah.
You know, we don't take that into consideration, but it's like you start doing that, I could see getting overly obsessed with that type of stuff really easily. Like that just sounds super fun.
It's addicting. And in fact, before you got here, I was talking with Dave about it, but I would like to have you guys come out and shoot with me, and we can get some footage of that and make another podcast for you guys if you want to.
I'm down.
Yeah, if you can teach us to shoot beyond a mile as like totally novice, that gives you so much more credibility of what it is that, you know, you're talking about. I know what you're talking about, and I'm sure a lot of shooters do. But if you could take two people who can't shoot past 200 yards and teach them to shoot a mile within a day, that's pure skill.
Yeah, I have a hard time imagining walking a mile as opposed to shooting.
You won't be the first that I have done it with, so I'm very confident that if you guys want to come out, we can do that. And I was telling Dave too, there is an actual registry for that. It requires a witness and some other things that we can put you guys on. And right now there's only about 5,000 names on that registry, which is a very small amount of shooters when you look at the fact that there's 8 billion people on the planet currently.
Yeah.
It's no small feat to shoot that far, and if the conditions are right, maybe even sometime after that we can go farther we can go, like 2 or something like that.
Wow.
Think about it, we'll get a certificate. It'll go here, but we're gonna put our doctorates up here.
Hell yeah.
Hell yeah. No,
Perfect.
but I would love to have you guys come out and
I'm so excited to do it.
Yeah, yeah. What are we doing here?
I think I'm gonna put on my Mark Wahlberg wig and hat and shit from like Shooter. We'll put a can of Dinty Moore out there. Handle it.
I want to dress as Steven Seagal from the movie Snipers.
That's where I learned to shoot. You gotta push the bullet out there. You gotta push it out there. I'm like a Japanese archer with bullets. I just push it out there.
Oh yeah, that would be super fun. That would be awesome.
well, let's
Yeah.
do it.
Yeah.
What's the farthest shot you've made within like a body size of accuracy?
2 miles.
Wow.
Yeah.
What is that? 34,
35, 20.
35 yards, 3,500 yards. That's a long fucking ways.
Yes. What is that? 10,000 feet?
And some change.
It's
yeah.
like 10, 5, 30, something like that.
Yeah.
That's a long goddamn way to put
It's far.
an object this big that far away.
It's far.
What is how long does that take to hit the target? Like,
It's like
So
12 seconds.
it depends on what you're shooting. Like I did an experiment last summer, toward the end of the summer, with a very small cartridge, AR-15, not even AR-10.
So 223.
No, not 223.
Or a 5.56?
It's a 6mm arc, but it goes in an AR-15 platform.
Okay.
But it gives you a reasonable velocity and a high ballistic coefficient bullet. So ballistic coefficient is how well that bullet rides through the environment, right? So
Mhm.
basically the aerodynamics of the bullet. And so we're right around 9 seconds to do, it was 1.76 miles. But right around 9 seconds for the bullet to reach the target. And that was with a velocity of just over 2650.
so at that range, speaking from like the like perspective of the target, would the target get hit before the sound report
Oh,
gets there?
absolutely. Absolutely. Even at, so I was dinking around yesterday, and I was only able to, it was a weekend, obviously, but I was only able to set up for 350 yards. And so I was dinking around with some different camera angles, and I actually, because I was shooting that close, decided to put the camera right under the target, looking back at the shooter. And even at that, I was reviewing the video last night, even at that, you're hearing the bullet before you hear the bang.
Yeah, 350
from the
yards.
gun, yeah.
Hmm.
So,
That I feel like that would be a super cool angle to see. I mean, you could probably see the.
We were actually talking
I don't
about
want
that.
to spill the beans on this little project quite yet. It was an experiment for something else that I'm working on. We'll talk about off camera,
Yeah.
because I don't want to spill the beans on it.
It's got my mind going like this, like, oh, we could do this.
But it's going to be freaking cool. Because what I found is that I can actually get trace in reverse, so from the target instead of from the shooter going
Yeah,
out. It's going to be kind of cool.
No, that is cool. So, I've seen some of your videos. Want to tell people, anybody that's watching or listening, what is your website and what is your YouTube channel?
So the YouTube channel is Triam LLC. I'm not doing a direct website anymore, but you can find me on eBay for one, Income Broker, Triam LLC. Yeah.
So I was curious. I kind of want to circle back to your military experience.
Okay.
Tell us a little bit about that.
So the military, I had a great time in my time in the military. I was in a special operations community, and it's something that honestly is a piece of me that I keep to me. So I don't really talk about it a lot. Did I get a lot of good training there? Yes. Was I a sniper? No. No, I was not a sniper. I did more airborne type stuff, jumped out of airplanes and that type of thing. So, yeah. But military is something that is a piece of me that I keep to me.
No, I understand that. I respect that. I was just kind of curious of kind of drawing like a linear path. You know, you talked about, you know, from your point of getting a BB gun to your work at a high school, and then kind of your trajectory into firearms through the military.
And that's a fair question, and it's a question that I get asked a lot. Is that where I learned how to do what I do? And I would love to say that it is, but it's not. We did more urban environment type stuff, and as far as our training went, was more with like an M4 in a closer environment. Though I did shoot a little bit of long range in the military, it's not where I learned how to do what I do.
Yeah.
I think that either way it would have to come from like a passion for it and passion for, you know,
absolutely, and they're
pushing yourself.
Yeah. There definitely was a passion that led me to the military.
Yeah. I definitely think within the realm of like gun tubers that I watch, the military is the gateway drug to firearms.
Can be it. Yeah.
Well, for a lot of those guys anyway.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, growing up, I thought about, considered very heavily joining the military. I think it was because of my passion for firearms and doing that, you know, that whole realm of things. So my interest in it, I think, came before that, but I think that there are a lot of people who aren't subjected to, you know, firearms and have that gateway as a child, and so like if they go into the military, it might be the first time they're actually handling a firearm, or you know. So I can see, you know, both ways, people getting into it because they're into, you know, dealing with firearms and learning how to use a firearm correctly. But also people going into the military, finding out, you know, how to do these things, and then taking that, you know, a step further once they get out and finding a passion for it and pursuing that passion.
Or that they find out that they love guns but they hate rucking.
Well, that is one thing with the military. The military has a unique way of taking things that are fun and making them not fun, like camping.
Solid.
You have to have the mindset of, we're just going camping a bunch of times.
We're just going camping, but you don't really get to sleep, and you're cold and you're hungry the whole time.
Yeah.
And there's no beer.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm out. Count me out.
Yeah, fuck all that.
So where can we get a copy of your book? Where can we get?
So the book is on Amazon. Shortly, it will also be on Barnes and Noble. So that's the book right there.
That book is dope as fuck.
That is dope.
Yeah. There's 3 different sections to it. The first is for tracking your environmentals. So all of this stuff that we track, date, location, altitude, temp, humidity, pressure, the rifle, the optic, twist rate, and so on. And this is just kind of example of how to use that. And then there's another thing for doing a field sketch where you can put in, excuse me, different target distances, your final firing position, and so forth. And then a barrel life chart. So, yeah, that's it.
Let's see that. Oh. Dope. Long Range Shooting Data Logbook by Andrew Gordon.
That's awesome.
That is super fucking cool.
Well, thank you.
Yeah, I saw an ad the other day for, it's a thing you can give somebody for a gift, and it's like you enter information about somebody that you're giving this gift to, and then AI writes a book about them.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, so like it could be like a biography on your spouse or whatever, and you just like put in fun little tidbits, and then AI makes a whole book about them. I was like, dude, I'm gonna have AI write a book about Dr. Johnson.
Well, you keep that one. I will bring you one to work because you guys are.
Oh, what? I get to keep this?
Yeah, you
Aw.
guys are gonna need that when we go shoot them. You're gonna want that when we go shoot them.
I always
awesome.
found SHATAC, they make, you know, the intervention series,
Yeah,
that they had their own little dope computer. I
yeah,
always thought those were cool as shit.
absolutely.
And
A lot of this stuff, you know, you're essentially you can draw from your ballistic apps and stuff like that. I like to have some analog stuff too,
yeah.
and that's just because batteries die and shit happens, right? But your analog stuff doesn't go away. But yeah.
Well, also just something to keep with your equipment that's specifically you know, for
So-
that reason.
If somebody was to get into long range shooting, what do you think would be like kind of the starter package? Like what would you need right off the bat to even initiate starting?
Okay, so how long are we talking?
Let's say out to a mile. Out to a mile,
To a
max.
mile. So once we start, so you need an optic that you can see through, that's going to track true,
Mhm.
and it has to have the ability to dial out to that far. So with an optic, and what I mean by dial out to that far, you have a turret that does your elevation, you have another turret that does your
Windage.
right? And so I can use a Night Force attacker for an example. If we were to do a 5 to 25 by 56 Night Force attacker, you got 32 mils of elevation in that turret. So when we take that and we mount that to our rifle, the optic has to be perfectly level, because if I'm dialing that elevation in and we have a cant to that optic, right, I'm going to be dialing elevation and wind at the same time, and so neither one of those are going to be true. So we need that level, and then we need level on our rifle, something that indicates to us when that optic is level, right? So it needs to be mounted level, it needs to be able to dial the elevation to the distance that I'm shooting. So if I'm doing 100 yard zero on that optic, right, and I have a 32 mil total elevation, right, my mechanical zero on that within the optic, right, so you've got an erector tube assembly that's controlled by that turret, and that moves inside the tube of your scope, right? So if it's a mechanical zero on that turret, that gives me 16 up and 16 down, right? So when I zero, I'm gonna be a little bit off of that mechanical zero. So I'm not getting that full 32 mils, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I need either a base that is inclined, so like maybe I'm putting that on a 20 MOA mount, and that 20 MOA mount is going on a 20 MOA rail, and that's going to give me 40 more minutes in my up travel
Mm-hmm.
that I can use within what the optic has. But when we start getting out to those ridiculous ranges like 2,000 yards and 3,000 yards and 2 miles, we're always past what the capability of the optic can dial.
Mm-hmm.
So I use the way that I do it, and there's lots of ways to do it, but I use adjustable mounts that I can
okay.
dial more inclination into. So one thing that I get a lot of shit from, and I kind of laugh at it, because you don't know what you don't know, right?
Yeah.
Like if you were to go take a class right now, they're going to tell you, you know, your optic as low as possible, and that way you're going to get your best sight picture and it's more accurate, and this is total bullshit. Like, it doesn't matter what height your optic is.
If it's zeroed, it's zeroed.
Right. Right.
Shouldn't matter.
Right. So, but that's one that I'll get comments on often, because I'm mounting high. Well, the reason that I'm mounting high is because when I'm out to those ridiculous ranges, I mean, I've got cant that looks
Yeah.
literally like that. And so the optic has to be high enough that I'm seeing past the barrel with that kind of inclination. I don't want to run my scope into the end of the barrel, right?
Yeah.
So,
Well, and that's the thing I think doesn't get taken into effect is because when your optic still sees straight as far as it'll go,
yeah.
but your bullet is not traveling straight, it's traveling in a curve. You're almost lobbing the bullet.
Oh, you're way lobbing the
And
ball.
so that's what people probably aren't taking into effect is the actual sight picture of your scope is different than the way the bullet has to travel,
Right.
which is why you get that can.
Yeah.
But then you start melting my mind when you're talking like 40 MOA, because I'm used to 1 or 2 or maybe 3 MOA on an optic, but you're talking 40, that's a lot. My mind can't
Makes
compute
sense
that.
though. Like you're
Yeah.
aiming the scope down like this, but you have to lift it up higher so that you're
Yeah,
looking
your
at it, but
rifle's
your
going-
rifle's going to be pointed like that,
Yeah.
which you're.
So that.
I think the next time somebody makes a comment like that, be like, show me your fucking 2-mile shot, bitch.
No, man. I know where that is at legitimately. So it doesn't like. It used to piss me off, but it's like you do you, boo boo.
Yeah, you're probably
I
talking to
don't-
a Call of Duty player or something like that. It's like, that's not how that works. I know I play Call of Duty.
Yeah. But like one of the last shots that I did, which was 31:43, and I want to say I was at 96 mils or something like that, which is, I can tell you, it's over 400 minutes.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's a ridiculous
That's a lot.
amount, yeah.
Jesus. So how many? So there's a registry for people who can shoot to a mile or beyond. Is there a registry for people who can shoot 2 miles?
So they do that in the same registry. To my knowledge, there's not very many, but you know, ELR is becoming more of a thing, and I think as it progresses, we'll see more and more people that are doing that. You know, it wasn't very long ago to me when like 1,000 yards was kind of the holy grail,
Yeah.
and now we're shooting you know, sub-MOA shit at 1,000 yards, and it's really not the challenge that it once was. I think now and I know this from the comments that I get, that, you know, kind of that holy grail mark right now for most people is a mile, which is, it is challenging, man. You
For
know,
sure.
Yeah.
You're looking at 3.5 seconds for the bullet to get there, and wind is probably the hardest piece of that, right? But the hardest piece with extreme long range, and it's even harder as we go out past a mile, is that flight time, right? Because in order to nail that firing solution, you're calculating it off of your environmentals, and they're literally changing while that bullet is still in the air.
Yeah.
And I think that's the most challenging part of it, especially as you, like, we're not doubling the distance when we go to 31, right?
Yeah.
But we're almost tripling the time. And, you know, you get a 5-mile-an-hour gust in that 9 seconds, and that's pushing your bullet quite a ways off.
Yeah.
One of the comments that I get the most is on crossing that transonic barrier, which I've found to have very little effect on what it actually does on the bullet. That was something that was just pounded into us 20 years ago. Which we'll talk about that in a bit too, but you know, there's a lot of other factors that are so much more critical to those shots than crossing that sound barrier.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, if you're, I mean, you can literally stand right outside here and look 100 yards down the road and see a tree moving in the wind, and you're not feeling any wind where you're at. So, I mean, you're crossing 1.5 miles, there's going to be windage differences just in the gap in between where you're at and where you're sending it.
Yeah, and then like your pressures are all changing as you're, you know, like where I shoot, you're probably both familiar with it, is right out on the kind of the salt flats, right? But there's a portion, the first maybe 2,000 yards is all vegetation, and then it goes from vegetation to salt flats, which you're changing your pressures as you go. You know, a lot of times when I'm taking those long ass shots, the other thing that you've got winds that are changing. So I will take a reading, and we do this with Mirage, right? But I'll take a reading at maybe 500 yards and 1,000 yards, and then another one at 15, and then I'm taking another one halfway between there and the target, and one at the target to try and figure out exactly what that wind is doing. And they're very, very hard shots.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Well, when you think about it, probably the most average person, even with a very basic AR setup with basic factory ammunition, most people probably can't shoot beyond 200 yards accurately. They're shooting a pistol beyond 15 yards accurately. So when you're talking about, 500 times that length, there's a lot of complications that go into that.
Yeah. Even, wind, like the difference between a tailwind and a headwind. I'll show you guys some of this stuff when we go out there. It's ridiculous. The other thing that you have to get down is and this is why we all hand load, or if we don't hand load, we're finding a bullet that is giving us extremely low standard deviation and extreme spread, and that's in your muzzle velocity, right? Because even 50 feet per second, I mean, at a mile, you're talking feet of difference in point of impact. And you know, you take your regular factory load, and it's very common to have a
Deviation from one round to the next.
per second deviation. Yeah.
Yeah. And anybody who's done any amount of realistic shooting, you know, you could take a box of rounds even through a handgun and you can feel the difference between a load and a round, where one is kind of like boop and then one is crack, you know.
Yeah.
It's like, it's not very significant, but it feels like the difference of, you know, a 9mm 115 grain versus 124 grain. When you put one of each in a magazine, they feel totally different.
Mm-hmm.
Even with that small powder change makes a difference, you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, it's something that, you know, people don't really think about. Like, even watching your videos, I mean, you could watch a video of yours that might be, you know, 7-8 minutes long on YouTube, but how long does it take to set up that shot, like in reality?
Oh wow, I'll tell you, man. When it's a good chunk of time. It, you know, takes me, once I've set the target up, it takes me 15 minutes just to get to the firing position.
Yeah.
And if I'm going out, you know, further than a mile, it's even more than that. And then, you know, you're collecting targets after you're setting up all the camera equipment. One thing that I wasn't doing when I first started doing it is putting a camera down at the target. And I mean, all that takes time. You've got to, it's a good chunk of time, man.
Yeah.
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 Just the walk time of 1 mile, one direction and then back.
Well, I drive it.
Yeah, I was gonna say I'm too lazy to walk it.
But
Get a
when
pedal
I'm,
bike or something.
when I'm shooting, like a lot of times I can't drive out onto the flats. I'll have to, so like my last 1,000 yards is lugging the target out across the salt flats in the middle of the desert, and that takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
So we need to bring Scott
Yeah.
so he can walk out the target.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead, buddy.
Walkie-talkies. Yeah, just a little bit further.
You're almost there. Don't stop.
So how's your day going, buddy?
All this stuff within 2,000 yards, though, we can drive to, and that's still a good poke.
Yeah,
That's still a good poke. Yeah.
I'm really looking forward to it
I am too.
because most of my experience with shooting is pistols, shotguns, and rifles at fairly close range, and I've always wanted to kind of experience that reach out and touch the target kind of thing.
Yeah.
So being able to do it, you know, where if I could be like, oh yeah, I made a cold bore shot at a mile on my first round, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Put
most
that
of my
right there, right
long
next to my
range
doctor.
stuff is around, you know, my hunting rifle is sighted in at like 150 yards, but, you know, taking shots at 350, you know, even me thinking about that is challenge. I mean, I'll hit the target, but, you know, getting a grouping on something like that is definitely challenging. But even like for me, when hearing like somebody hitting a target at a mile away, my mind just is like, how is this possible?
Yeah.
But yeah, I'm super excited to go and
It'll be good.
attempt.
But back to your question, what do you need? I have ADHD, so I tangent.
Hey, we're getting there. It's fine.
I apologize for that. You need a way to stabilize it, right? So we need a bipod. We need the level. The rifle has to perform, right? So you want to be sub-MOA capability on the rifle. And then the optic. Then we need a rear bag, because we need to be like ridiculously stable
Mhm.
for those. So you need that. The rifle should be free floated as far as the barrel goes,
Mhm.
and you should have a decent trigger. Those are kind of the basics to get you out there.
What would be kind of kind of a good off-the-shelf starter rifle for something like that?
Savage Elite Precision, in my opinion. A lot of people would disagree with me. I've shot a fuck ton of
I don't give a fuck. They're not here.
No, I don't give a fuck either. I've shot a fuck ton of Savages. I have never shot one that will not shoot with the right load in about that half MOA capability.
Mm-hmm.
Which, so if you're looking at MOA, right, it's a angular unit of measurement. And
Minute of angle.
yeah, so what that means is if I zero my rifle at 100 yards, a 1 minute of angle group is going to be right around 1 inch. It's like 1.006 or some shit like that, so we'll call it 1 inch, right? But at 200 yards, because that is an angular unit of measurement, that's now 2 inches, right? And so at 1,000 yards, it's now 10 inches,
Mhm.
right? And this is under perfect conditions, right? So if we go out to a mile, now we're 17.6 inches without taking into consideration any of the other variables that are going into that shot. And as we get out to those further distances, like 3,000 yards, it's a wider
Yeah.
unit of measurement, so we want that group as small as possible, right? And then we also we want a bullet that is going to perform well, as in velocity wise, right? So that needs to be as close in feet per second as we can possibly get it.
Mm-hmm.
And that bullet also needs to aerodynamically work for us, because we could take a low BC bullet and fire it at a higher velocity and have a not have it not get there as quickly as a higher ballistic coefficient bullet at a lower velocity, because it's slowing down as it's traveling through the air, slowing down faster. So
Yeah.
it's all a lot of, there's a lot of science that
Many
goes
factors.
into it, man. A lot of factors
Yeah.
that go into it. Long range is humbling, and extreme long range is very humbling.
Oh, I'm sure. I mean, I get humbled when I go to shoot like a pistol target at 30 yards and I'm aiming up high and I hit the fucking ground. Like, God, I didn't mean to do that. You know.
Yeah.
So let me ask you this. Let me ask you a really fun question. In terms of long range shooting in movies, give me one scene that got it right and one scene that got it completely wrong.
You know, I'm not much of a movie guy. But if you asked my wife, she would tell you that I go batshit crazy on that. That's not how it fucking works. I'll watch movies with you. Let me think about that, and we'll come back to it.
Okay. I get it, because there's people within kind of like more niche communities that you can't watch certain movies with. Fortunately, there's not a whole lot of movies about making carbon fibers, so we're not
Yeah.
part of that.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of the times you'll.
I don't have to watch the movie, I live it in real life.
I yeah. If you watch like a military movie with somebody who was in the military, the first thing they tear apart is their garb, or their medals and shit like that. And I'm just like, okay,
Yeah, it's real to me.
There's certain things that I know, but then there's other things I'm like, that's totally on you, man, and I don't care that much. But there are, I think for anybody who's into firearms in general, there's things within movies that you see and you're like, no. The first one is obviously suppressors.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think for me, it's like seeing movies about doctors because I'm a doctor and I know that shit's not true.
You are a doctor.
Doctor/scientist. Like, we've never used a microscope on this show ever.
Microscope, dude. He's sick. You can tell he's sick because he's sick.
He's throwing up, right? Stupid.
Suppressors, you can get some quiet stuff.
Sure. Actually, let me take that back. The number one thing that movies get wrong is that people get into gunfights and they're not wearing hearing aids after.
Yeah.
It's because every movie ever, nobody's ever just like, fuck, hold on, let me put my ear pro in.
Yeah.
Now let's gunfight, you know.
Bro, I'm deaf as fuck. Like I am deaf.
That's because you didn't stop to put your ear pro in before the gunfight.
Something.
I think I'm yeah, definitely have hearing damage. I like to call it selective hearing, but my wife just thinks I'm deaf. It's like, yeah, I didn't hear what you said because I was looking at my phone.
I like to call it, I just didn't care what you had to say.
But back to suppressors, this is cool,
Yeah.
right? Subsonic. So when we fire a bullet, sonic crack is going to lead into our little thing. But as that bullet passes the sound barrier, you get a boom, right?
Mhm.
So suppressor won't take that out. But if you're running something like a subsonic 300 blackout round, it's pretty damn quiet. Pretty damn quiet.
Yeah, because what is the sound barrier? 770 miles an hour, something like that?
740.
So if your bullet is not designed to ever go past that, you know,
You're not going to have the sonic boom.
yeah,
Yeah.
it'll still be loud. You'll still hear the action of the gun and the gunpowder ignite, and you'll hear the whiz of the bullet, but you'll never get that sonic boom.
Yeah.
Yeah, I saw a couple videos of people supposedly making suppressors out of oil filters.
Mhm.
Well, I thought that was kind of, I mean, is it true or not? I don't know. I just saw some videos like, wow.
Well, I mean, I've seen some of those
Interesting.
kind of internet mythbuster style videos of old kind of wives' tales about suppressors, or you could use a potato, like you can use a potato once for a small caliber and then the potato explodes, kind of thing.
What's that
Or
going to do to the bullet too? I mean, your
Yeah.
round is it's traveling through the fucking potato right out of the barrel.
no, it's not. It's the trajectory is all wonky after that. I mean, you're talking shooting it through a mass that has different consistencies through it, like your bullets, especially a small bullet, it's going to wander.
Yeah, I would
Um,
just use, if I'm shooting at somebody through a potato, you're going to have to be close up at that point. I would just use a pillow because you can do that too.
Yeah, the pillow thing is actually legit.
Yeah.
Or the fucking Steven Seagal movie where he thought he was Native American. You know which one? The one specifically where he was an Eskimo
I don't know.
on deadly ground.
I don't.
There was like a scene where he dumped out a 2-liter bottle of soda and put his 1911 in there and taped the barrel to the soda bottle and fired one round, suppressed, and that's movie shit right there. It'll deaden it like this much. The overpressure of the bottle is going to make the bottle pop. So, no, that's not real at all. But yeah, real suppressors have really interesting technology in it.
Oh yeah.
And I actually learned that from watching that show, Sons of Guns. Did you ever watch that?
I did, yeah.
That show was so bad. It was so
I used to
stupid.
watch that show all the time, but I more like the styling of what they were doing as opposed to, I didn't know what the fuck they were talking about most of the time.
Well, they built so much weird, stupid shit. Like, hey, let's mount 2 MG42s on a fucking jet ski or whatever it was, or a snowmobile. But yeah, they actually did teach a little bit about how suppressors work, and that's where I learned it from. Never been done before.
All right, well, you've got your dope book, and then you're also working on a couple other books.
Yeah, I'm working on a reloading book. That'll be kind of a step-by-step on how I get the numbers that I get, and it will probably get freaking trashed in reviews, and I don't even give a fuck, because reloading is like another controversial subject when you get it. Like, everybody's got this is the way you do it, this is the only way you do it no other way. But I get some really good results, and so I feel like I need to share that with people. And so I'm working on that one. I'm also working on a similar to the book that I gave you, a reloading data log book. So.
Very nice.
Yeah, I think that, you know, if you're going to push the boundaries on anything, whether it's shooting or any type of thing, you kind of have to step outside of the normal science of things that people say you have to do it this way. Okay, if I step out this side this much and I get good results or even sometimes better results, am I more right than that? Or is it, you know, with everything that you do? I mean,
I 100% agree.
Well, and firearms is kind of niche in that way where people get so kind of set in their ways of what they believe, you know, like my uncle believes it's stupid to buy a Glock when you could buy a Taurus, and I wholeheartedly disagree with him, you know. Or people think a single stage reloading press is always going to be better and more accurate than a multi-stage reloading press. You know, it's all about what you're using that equipment for and how you're using it, not what brand it is or how many stages or who manufactured it, what kind of powder you're using. Like, there's so many different factors that go into it. Just because I may be able to reload accurately on a single stage doesn't mean you can't do it with the same accuracy on a multi-stage, you know.
At the end of the day, and this is one as gun guys we all tend to forget, at the end of the day, any of it is the same passion, maybe in a different discipline. Like I love Italian cars. My wife loves American muscle, and it's the same passion from a different side of the pond.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I think that's something that as gun guys we always tend to fucking forget. Like, man, there's a lot of different disciplines within firearms, and that doesn't make one better than another.
I agree, and it's kind of like, I know there's the niches within like motorcycle culture, whether you're on a cruiser or on a bullet bike or on a trike. If you're riding a Hayabusa, or if it's an Indian versus a Harley, they pretty much unanimously agree, as long as you're on two wheels, nobody gives a shit, you know, and that's the way it should be. As long as you're still pulling the trigger safely, that's all that really matters.
Yeah.
But I'm still going to measure dicks if I could shoot better than you. That's how that should be.
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, I think that's kind of why there's a list of only 5,000 people that can reach out to a mile and fucking put something on a target. Like,
yeah,
it's definitely an accomplishment and something that should be. If we go out and I'm able to hit anything but the fucking dirt at a mile,
you will.
I'll probably just make a T-shirt that has a fucking.
I know a guy.
I know a guy that makes T-shirts. My diploma,
right?
My doctorate, you know, and then fucking number 5,247.
I think it'll be a cool day for you guys.
Yeah,
I do.
I'm just gonna walk around fully erect the whole next day. It's like, did you know I shot a target at a mile?
Knocking drinks off the fucking pavement.
Can't even stand up right.
Well,
that's good. I'm
looking forward to it, man.
Yeah, me too.
I mean, I think there is still more to cover with 2A, but it's kind of another time kind of thing. I wanted to delve half into that and half into the long range shooting in your business and stuff like that. So I think we covered a lot of ground.
Yeah, we did. We did.
But we're definitely going to have to go in on the 2A again because Preston also wants to do it. So
Hell yeah.
Cool.
we could just sit here and bash on how unfair it is.
Unfair, what is?
The Second Amendment rights are under attack.
Oh, yeah.
I should be able to have a short-barreled rifle with a suppressor that's fully automatic with a bump stock without paying any extra and without being legislated. Even though that sounds like a odd combo, but I'd do it. Just saying. Why can't we all have Glock 18s?
I don't know.
I want one.
I
We'll
want
see
one
what
too.
happens in the next election, I guess, huh?
Yeah. Brown Spencer, 2028. Doctors.
Rounds.
Yeah, we ran for president and vice president this last term. Sadly, we didn't make it.
We got one vote.
Did you?
Legit, yeah, one vote. It was me, but
That's awesome.
I have proof.
I got a write-in a couple of years back. Yeah,
You got a write-in?
I did. Not by me.
Oh, who did
I was
it?
told about it, yeah.
Was it your wife?
No, it wasn't my wife.
Who was it?
So he worked with us. His name was Eric Bishop.
I remember we got hired with him. He was in our hire group.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah,
No,
he was.
for real.
Was he?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was like, I know that name. Yeah.
He worked with me at Kennecott.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's fucking crazy. No, he was literally in our hire group.
That's funny.
Yeah.
He was kind of an odd pearl.
He is odd. He's
Nice
a good
guy.
dude, though.
Yeah, very nice
Hell,
guy.
good dude.
He's very kind of socially awkward.
Yeah.
Yeah, man. Last time I talked to him, I was, anyways, it was before he quit, but when he was still working there. But
Yeah.
that was a long time ago.
Yeah, I haven't seen him in a hot minute.
Yeah, it's crazy though that he just randomly wrote you in.
Is it though? Did he shoot
I
it a mile?
used to, no. He got shot with me before. We were doing more CQB shit. But, yeah, I used to, so, yeah. I used to have conversations out there that you shouldn't have, because I'm socially inept and I don't know where those boundaries are. But, yeah, we would talk about political shit all the time. And, yeah.
So he wanted to assassinate somebody.
No, that's not where we're going. Just, the conspiracy type stuff.
That's what we do here.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we like to talk about and put the known facts out there and then kind of give our own speculation on shit. I mean, that's what we do.
Unless you put actual...
Like I said, I mean, the boundaries are only the boundaries until it's proven that the boundaries are actually wider. So, I mean...
Unless you're talking about actual facts of 9/11. Then they take that episode down because you're spitting real information.
Yeah.
They hate that.
They do hate that.
Donald Rumsfeld was just like scrolling random small-time podcasts like, these motherfuckers. That's what happened.
Yep.
But yeah. Looking forward to it. We're going to have to set a date.
Okay.
It's going to be a good time.
Hell yes. Hell yes.
Yeah, we'll, dude, I'm excited, man.
I'm so
I
excited.
don't know what to say.
All right, let's pull it
Let's
there.
get into some conspiracy shit.
Okay, love you. Bye-bye.
Bye.